Got one person. Hello, hello, whoever you are. This is the Friday live stream where I answer y'all's questions and we have a discussion. This is basically the day that I don't do a pre-recorded video on whatever I'm studying. I let you guys sort of dictate the conversation. Hello, Steak Bake. Hope you're enjoying your Friday. It is another depressing day in this winter time. Well, I'm glad I woke you up. Thought this was not until 10:30? No. No, it was scheduled for right now. Got 2 people up. Five people. Now it's a party. But almost done with my series on the death penalty. This has been something that I have been focusing on a lot. Hello, Mr. Hannah. Thank you for coming on to the stream. Glad to have you on. But I've been focusing on the death penalty because I started reading a book called The Death of Punishment by Robert Blecker. Would like to talk with Robert Blecker. I don't know if he'll ever agree, but I have been enjoying his reading. I haven't finished his book yet. I am almost finished with his book. But it is on capital punishment for the worst of the worst. Good afternoon, Rusty Shackleford. Hope everything is well in Florida. I have about maybe 80 or so pages to go for Mr. Blecker's book, and that would include the appendixes, because he does have a lot of interesting information in the appendix of the book. Even though it's not classified as required reading within the book, I would like to um, learn more about American law in regards to capital punishment. First beer since 2021. I'm sure it tastes amazing. What beer are you drinking? Hello, Fast Joe Corrigan. I remember there was a what's up, Cove Teo. I remember there was a UFC fighter. What was his name? Poirier. I can't say his name. Something Poirier. He fought. Oh, how old is Blecker? Yeah, you asked me that. Blecker is probably in his 60s, I would say. Hello, our friend from South Africa. South Africa. I don't know if you answered my question, but are you a fan of Seether? Because they're a band that's from South Africa. At least 2 of the members of the band, one of whom is the front of the band, the vocals of the band, are from South Africa. I've been hearing some trads believe there were 250,000 Jews killed during the Holocaust because it sounds like BS. It's amazing. For some reason, I knew somebody was going to bring this up. I have this. I don't know. Do any of you guys have this ability? Hold on. Let me get some lights on here. It's a little. Guys, I don't know what the hell happened. Literally, I have the most retarded computer in America. I turned on the light, and as I was coming back to sit down, I am not exact. Like the whole computer just shut down. I have the most retarded computer in all of America. I don't know. I was hoping that the guy from South Africa would answer my question, whether or not he listens to Seether, because they're one of the best bands ever. I love their music. That's yeah. Yes, it's a freaking apple. Why? I mean, do you have any knowledge about Apple that I don't know? Do you have anything that indicates that Apple sucks? Hello, Divine Soldier. Yes, it's an apple, or apple's bad. I've been trying to find a good source to debunk the absurdly laughable low 250. Generally, it's accepted that the number was in the millions. I think. Okay, even if it was, oh god, have you guys? I knew that somebody was going to bring this up. That's the thing. I knew somebody was going to bring up for some reason. I was sitting down, I'm like, someone's going to bring up the Holocaust. You know what's so crazy is that. Do you guys ever have these moments where you just know what's going to happen? You just know, like, today, this is going to happen, and it happens. Have you guys ever had that? I've had this happen to me too many times to count, to the point where I don't know where it comes from. I mean, I guess you could just say, I guess the most pragmatic explanation is just our own human intuition, or maybe it's just a good guess. But I've had this happen so many times where I'll be sitting around and I'll say, "This is gonna happen," and it happens. I've had this happen so many freaking times. I remember one time I was this is so weird. I remember one time I was searching through YouTube looking for Protestant versus Catholic uh material. This was back in 2014, and I found this guy named Keith Thompson on YouTube who was just rambling against the Catholics. And I thought, in my mind, I thought, I'm probably going to debate this guy. And I am not exaggerating when I say this to you. Later on that day, this dude writes me wanting to have a debate. It was one of the weirdest, it was such a surreal experience that I had. I cannot even explain it. I can't even explain it. Um, I remember telling myself, I'm probably going to debate this dude. Later on that day, this guy writes me saying he wants to debate me. It was insane. I'm pretty certain that the debate is still up on YouTube. Do it at the casino. It doesn't work with the gambling. I don't know. I just can't explain it to you. I remember, man, I've had this happen to me. I remember telling myself today, someone's going to bring up the Holocaust. I just know it. I just know it. And somebody brings up the Holocaust. Oh God. So millions of people were killed by the Nazis. It's just something that is an historical consensus. Yeah. I don't really know what else to say. I don't know. It was strange. I think I had a similar experience with Eric Allen Bell. I think I remember because I remember Eric Allen Bell, he hated my father. Eric Allen Bell, for those of you who don't know, he was a big anti-Islam guy back in the 20 teens. He got popular because he was a liberal who wrote for some left-wing publication. I think he wrote for Slate magazine or something to the likes of that. Um and he ended up becoming anti-Islam. He was kind of a liberal, and I guess the gist of the reason for his popularity was that he was a liberal who became anti-Islam. And so that for some reason that was something remarkable to people. To me, it means nothing because a lot of left leaning people or left wing people end up hating all religion anyway. Um, but he ended up saying some very negative things towards my father when he first got into the limelight as a counter jihad voice. And he started talking against my father I want to say sometime in the early 2000s. Um, but then I remember in 2000 and I want to say 15 or I want to say 16 or 15. I remember watching him on YouTube and thinking, whatever happened to this guy? Or I remember I was in the car. We were driving from somewhere, and I brought him up. I said, "Remember Eric Allen Bell? Blah blah blah." And that day, I get an email from Eric Allen Bell. It was like the day that he pops up in my mind. I get an email from him saying, "Hey, I want to debate you." And my father and I debated him, and we had a blast. My dad and I had a lot of fun debating this guy because he was such a jackass. Zemmour is going to win the elections. Okay, so we have another right wing uh, provocateur winning an election in Europe. I also imagine no matter what evidence is shown to those who say 250,000 Jews were killed, they would accept it. They wouldn't accept it. I imagine many of them also still think Benedict is Pope. Even if it was 250,000, I mean, if someone said, yeah, they actually killed 250,000 people, I would say, wow. I mean, those people are pieces of shit, don't you think? If you kill 250,000 people, you're evil. That's evil. 250,000 people is not a small amount of people. That's like massacring an entire city. So I don't really see how that proves anything in regards to the character of the Third Reich. He tried to use Cindy Brady to get the upper hand. Yes, I remember Cindy Brady. And what was so funny is that Mrs. Brady or Miss Brady, I don't know if she ever was married, she was very pro Sodom, and she was trying to paint me as a hate monger and a homophobe or whatever, only to some years later lose her job simply because she used the F word. And I found that to be, in a way, poetic justice, because here she was derailing me, drilling me, trying to portray me as some kind of monster because of my views on Sodom. And then she got into some sort of dispute with a homosexual. I don't remember who it was, but she addressed this person as an F word, and she lost her job. So who knows? Maybe she became a real homophobe after that. I don't know. Let's see. Never heard about Seether until you mentioned them a couple of weeks ago, and now I am hooked. Oh my goodness, you just heard about Seether. They came from South Africa. They arrived in the United States touring across the country, and they became super famous because they did a number of really, really well done songs, like Remedy, like Fine Again. Um, what else was there? Truth, that was an excellent song. Wasteland is an excellent song. A lot of their latest stuff is actually pretty good. I really enjoy Wasteland and what was it? Oh, man, I have this difficulty remembering the names of songs. What was it called? Degrade. There's a song they came out with. I think they came out with it 2 years ago. Betray and Degrade. That was an excellent song. I love that song. So many great songs from that band. I would put Seether right up there with Nickelback as one of my favorite bands. but maybe even better than Nickelback in some ways because they're so good at developing rhythm. I'm not gonna sing a song. I don't have much of a voice. I ain't got no rhythm. Susan Olsen. Yes. Yes, the actress. She played in the Brady Bunch. Have you ever looked up with which famous people share a birthday with you? I don't think I have. No. Would it matter though? Like, should I don't know. If I were to look up somebody who is famous who just so happens to have the same birthday as I do, what would I do with that? I mean, would that somehow denote that I have some kind of good luck or some kind of fortune? Uh, should I then at that point, upon learning that they have the same birthday as I do, should I write them and say, "Hey, we were both born on September the 18th?" I don't know. Hello, Johnny from Brooklyn. Dathip, James Brown. I don't like James Brown. I was never a fan of his music. I Who's that black singer? He was blind. What was his dang it, I keep forgetting the names of these singers. What was his name? There was a singer that was blind. What was his name? He made a song called Be True to Your Heart. Stevie Wonder, that guy. That guy sucks. He made that the only good song, I mean, Ray Charles, I don't listen to any of that. I honestly was never a fan of any soul music. Stevie Wonder, James Brown, uh, any of these guys. I was just never a fan of any of them. I never really saw. I know there's something about it. Like there's so many things to talk about on this stream. There's so many things to say on your guys' comments. First off, let's deal with soul music. The reason why I never liked Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder or any of these guys is because their music has no sense of beauty in it. I never really saw their music as beautiful. When I listen to Antonio Vivaldi or any of these Baroque composers who made some pretty remarkable compositions, or when I listen to uh, the rock bands that I enjoy listening to, that I know a lot of you guys probably don't like, Evanescence, Nickelback, Seether, Creed. There was a depth of beauty in their music. When you listen to Creed, for example, and he sings "My Sacrifice" or with "Eyes Wide Open," when you listen to a band like Alter Bridge, who made a beautiful song called "Open Their Eyes" or when they open their eyes, and he sings when they open their eyes and realize we are one, and he just, you know, uh, it's hard to walk this path alone. It's hard to know which way to go. There's a depth of beauty and there's a depth of richness, for lack of a better word, both lyrically and rhythmically speaking. Or somebody just brought up techno. Even in trance music, when you listen to ATB, Andre Tannenberger, who to me is the greatest of all trance composers, there is most definitely a dimension of beauty in his lyrics that harmonizes and goes so well with the lyrics, or so well with the rhythms that he composes. So, for example, there's a song. Man, I have to read the lyrics to serve it justice. Hold on. There's a song that he made, Andre Tannenberger made. Um, let's see here. Hold on a second. What's the name of that song from ATB? It's such a good song. But ATB lyrically just has wonderful music. When I listen to Ray Charles or whatever, and he's just with his sunglasses and he's bobbing his head left and right, I don't see anything beautiful about it. I just see it as just garbage. There's nothing serious about it. It's like when somebody says, "Ted, you should watch this movie. It's a black comedy or something." I have no interest in watching that because it's a black comedy, meaning it's going to take something that's serious and try to make a joke about it. And there's certain things that to me are never fitting in the context of humor. I just don't see it. As some people think that it's amazing or that it's ingenious. To those people, I just say that we live in two different universes. You can never, when somebody says, "I think this thing is funny," and you find it repulsive, you're literally, um, you want to block me from my channel? Why? I don't know. If somebody comes to you and says, "I think you're a I think this is funny," and it's whatever they find to be funny is utterly repulsive. You're never going to convince that person that they're wrong. It's impossible. Like if somebody were to come to you and say, "I find rape funny," and there are people who speak in this manner. Um, so, for example, there was a comedian by the name of Tosh years ago, and people thought he was hilarious. I knew people personally who told me that they thought that Tosh's humor was hilarious. And I watched him one time. I remember I was in a hotel, and I was bored out of my mind and was watching the television. And I saw Tosh doing a stand-up show, and he was laughing about somebody being decapitated. Well, that's not funny. I mean, somebody got decapitated. It's not funny. I could never laugh at that. I could never laugh at somebody being decapitated. I could never laugh about a woman being raped or a child being molested. That there's nothing funny about that. And people could sit here and say, "Well, you're a tight ass. You have no sense of humor. They can sit there and try to manipulate the discussion all they want. I will never change my position in regards to this. It's not funny. Um, there are certain films that were very good at presenting humor that were authentically funny. For example, Trains, Planes, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin, by far one of the greatest comedies ever done. Mr. Deeds was an amazing comedy. I loved Mr. Deeds. Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, Almost Heroes. These were very good. To me, they were very good comedies, and I found them to be amazingly funny. But the whole context of the film was nothing but humor. It was when you watched the film, it was obvious that you were watching a comedy. There was nothing really repulsive in these movies. There were some. Uh, there was a little bit of vulgarity in these films, but it wasn't anything to the extent of something horrific like rape or somebody being decapitated. Uh, Anger Management was a funny film. Yes, I remember that. It was a decently funny movie. Um, but to me, humor must have its limits. I've never seen Kingpin. I've never even heard of it. Um, so the same thing goes with music. I have the same paradigm when it comes to music. Um, there was a song, man, by ATB. It drives me crazy that I can't find this. Let's see here. Found it. It was called "Never Without You." This song played This song has played probably 100 times on my iTunes. Let's see here if I can find the lyrics. Here it is. From where I lay, you would always be the better part of me, stolen pieces that I'm hid underneath. Through years, I'd hang on a word for you. While you are so carefully disguised, we're hoping we would all but die and start anew. I mean, that's poetic right there. And this song was made in 2017. It's amazing. And usually songs don't have this sort of poetry, but in the music of Andre Tenenberger, there is still almost this old style poetry. And maybe that's because Andre Tenenberger is European, and Europeans do have a long, obviously a very long tradition of poetry. But even if you look at more North American bands like Creed, I mean Creed was a very poetic band. They had lyrically, they had some very beautiful songs. Um when you also look at even Seether, I mean Seether lyrically had some very beautiful songs. It still is producing some very beautiful songs. But if you ask me to listen to Ray Charles, I don't see what purpose there is to listen to such music. I don't see anything beautiful about it. I think the only people who want to listen to that music would be people who would want to dance to it. But in that type of activity, I have no interest. A Kofteo, I remember when we first started talking, or when you first started coming to my live stream, you told me that Romanians win first place in complaining. At first, I wasn't sure if I should believe that, but you are a living a testament and embodiment to what you told me earlier. You more into the progressive euphoric techno. I like Euro trance. I think European trance music is excellent. Adam Sandler was a very good actor when it came to humor. I really haven't looked at any of his more recent stuff though, but I do enjoy Deeds, Billy Madison, um, Happy Gilmore. These were all great films. I started saving money for the carrier. I'll let you know in 2000 years. Isn't that the bad guy from Spider-Man? Have you seen Kingpin? How is your faith when times of church is not going to church because of predators? How's my faith? This stream is quickly going to shift from being one on music and literature to one on human psychology. I don't know. Some guys screaming into a microphone, something like "Watch me." I don't find that beautiful at all. Maybe we live in two different universes and we don't have the same mentalities. Hello, John Avanti. But that's just my mind and what my own psychological disposition is telling me. A little off topic, but Theo, what are your thoughts of a Christian using civil disobedience? Um, I see you're a fan of the Patriots. That's a very see. So let's talk about that. That's a good question. Christian civil disobedience, or okay, civil disobedience. You're not talking about just outright rebellion where you're actually using extreme violence, which I would never support. Civil disobedience is one thing. Um, Civil disobedience isn't really bad if it's for a good cause. So, for example, if blacks are ordered to sit in the back of the bus and they decide to sit in the front of the bus, that would be a show of civil disobedience, and that would be righteous. Um, if a business owner is told that he must make uh, a cake for a homosexual wedding, but he refuses to do that, even in the face of penalties, I think that would definitely be a form of disobedience that would be righteous. Um, so Romans 13 deals with the state exercising power against evildoers. The state always has the right to punish evildoers. St. Paul says that the state is a terror to those who do evil. But what happens when the state becomes evil itself? And that is for one thing, I don't think this happens all too commonly. And if it does happen, it's usually a mild form of tyranny. There are some extreme cases of tyranny in history that we can look to in which Christians most definitely rebelled. If the state is telling you to worship the emperor and you refuse, that is a form of disobedience that most definitely is righteous. So, for example, in the Old Testament, we have the case of the three Hebrews who refused to bow down to the golden image that was erected under the orders of Nebuchadnezzar. And they refused to bow down to the golden image, and they were blessed by God for that. Um, we have the case of Mordecai refusing to bow down to a Persian official. Um, we have the cases of the early Christians refusing to acquiesce to the state religion of the Roman Empire. These are all cases of rightful civil disobedience. The Maccabees is another example of this, absolutely. This is taught within the New Testament. So if you just look at, for example, the lives of the early Christians in the book of Acts, it's pretty much a reoccurring pattern of people being arrested and then being released from prison and being arrested again. St. Paul is arrested. St. Peter is arrested. And they're arrested for the cause of good, not for the cause of evil. There is a story in the New Testament that I truly believe embodies this teaching, the teaching of righteous disobedience. And that is when the religious leaders try to trick Jesus by giving him a coin and saying, should we pay taxes to the state? And Jesus says, whose face is on the coin? And the religious leaders say, it's Caesar's face. And Jesus says, give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give unto God what belongs to God. And what that implies is that they are things that belong to the state, rightfully belong to the state, and we should definitely honor what is rightfully owed to the state. And then there are things that belong to God that the state should never try to take control over. There's a story in the Old Testament where a King Saul tries to direct the sacrifice, and he is reprimanded for that, implying that there are certain things that the state has no responsibility over. The state has no responsibility over ritual or theological dictates. The state has an obligation to enforce moral laws, to enforce laws that are just and necessary for society. Once the state begins to try to take away that which belongs to God, then we're not obligated to follow such a dictate. So if the state says that you have to honor Sodom, that would not be an obligation for us. We would actually be obligated not to obey. If the state says that we have to support abortion, then we would be obligated to resist. If the state tells us that we have to spit on the face of Christ, like in that movie about the Japanese, I don't remember what it was called, Silence, then we would be obligated to resist. So disobedience is one of those things where it's not something that is commonly necessary, but when it is necessary, then it's really obvious and it's right on your face. Yeah, the whole Russia Ukraine thing. I don't know. Biden said that Russia is going to invade Ukraine in the next few days. Why would Biden say that? Why would Russia, even if that were the case? I mean, if the president of the United States is saying Russia is going to invade this country on this, next week on Wednesday, then that's the day they're not going to show up. Because why would they want to show up when you expect them to show up? It just doesn't make any sense. So who are the globalists? Because it says Russia is not playing ball with the Who are the globalists? Who are these people? No problem, brainstorm. Who are these people? Who are? I mean, I keep hearing this thing. The globalists. Who? What are their names? And please don't name George Soros. What are their names? Who are these people? Who are they? The Illuminati. Who's a member of the Illuminati? I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just wondering who these people are because for years I've been hearing about the globalists and the globalist this and the globalist. Who are the globalists? Georgios Sorousos. I knew as soon as somebody brought up the truckers, the Canadian truckers, that Heather Green was going to jump on it because this is right up her alley. Oh, you're joking. Okay. The jolly old pirates that represent special interest. Globalists are multinational companies, BlackRock, e.g. I actually looked into the whole thing about BlackRock. They don't even own the majority of rental properties. They don't. People high up in NATO. Okay. So if Russia starts its empire again and Russia takes control over most of Asia, Africa, and South America, wouldn't Russia then become the globalist? Wouldn't all? I mean, don't you think there would be Russian corporate interest in all of the natural resources in Africa? Wouldn't those Russians then become the globalist? That's a sincere question that I have because I keep hearing about the globalists. It's kind of like when people talk about the elites, and it's like, who are the elites? Oh, Jeff Bezos. Well, Jeff Bezos started a book selling, an online book selling website, and it ended up becoming so popular that it no longer just sells books; it sells everything, and people and Bezos has made billions of dollars out of it. I mean, isn't that capitalism? Isn't that what all the conservatives have been preaching in favor for? All of the Christians, all of the capitalists, all of the Republicans, all of the Trump supporters, they all support capitalism. So Jeff Bezos should be their hero. I mean, we should be, not we, but these people should be looking up to Jeff Bezos and admiring him because he is a man who completely used capitalism for his favor. He has made tons of money. So isn't that capitalism? And if the elites are bad, I mean, isn't capitalism also bad because it's through capitalism that people get super rich? It's through selling goods and investing in different companies and becoming a major shareholder that people get rich. People make tons of money off of investing. People make tons of money off of being a major owner of a company or being a CEO. So shouldn't you be hating the elites? Well, you hate the elites. That's obvious. Sorry, I had a little brain glitch there. Shouldn't you be hating capitalism? Russia still believes in one sense or another in nation states. Um, really? Because isn't it true that I mean, if I go to Kazakhstan, if I go to Belarus, if I go to Ukraine, if I go to Georgia, if I go to Armenia, all these people speak Russian. They have their own native languages, but they also speak Russian. In fact, what was it not the Soviet Union that invaded half of Poland and then tried to replace Polish with Russian? Do they really? I don't know. You tell me. Does that sound like a respecter of nation states? I don't think. Listen, America has power over much of the world, economically speaking. And all of the countries that America has power over still speak their native languages. All of Africa is subservient to the US. Africans speak their own language. I mean, they speak the languages that they have. There hasn't been any major shift in languages recently in Africa. America controls Mexico. Mexico is the puppet of America. That's a fact. Most Mexicans don't even speak English. Uh, so I really don't understand what you're saying. I mean, the reality is that you're always going to have a very powerful country that's going to rule over other countries simply for the reason that that major powerful country has bigger guns and more money. I mean, the USSR, okay, okay, okay. All right, fine. Since we don't want to point to the USSR, let's look at the Tsar. Tsardom. Russian Empire. Russian language. Poland. Let's do some research on this, shall we? The Russification of Poles. The Russification of Poland happened under the Tsar. It wasn't even under the Soviet Union that it began. Let's do little screen sharing, shall we? Okay, hold on, guys. Let's share the screen. Let's look at the Russification of Poland, guys. Let's see if there was any serious. Let's make this a little amplified, a little magnified to make it easier for people to read this. Thank you. Self-will of Grand Duke Constantine and the infraction of the Constitution of the Kingdom of Poland, together with the rise of secret societies, led to the November Uprising. The intensification of Russification occurred after the aforesaid uprising failed, leading to the abolishment of the Constitution of 1815. In 1832, with the implementation of the organic statute of the Kingdom of Poland, the Sejm was liquidated along with the kingdom's armed forces, Russian institutions, and law was implemented, and any aid to the November uprising had their landed property seized. Martial law was implemented in 1833. All decisions were given by Russian military chiefs and Namestnik Ivan Paskovich. The retained Council of State until 1914 had a Russian majority. Okay. Additionally, the Russian language was introduced into folk schools. Conclusively speaking, the Polish language was banned in institutions of education. There was also an attempt to introduce the Cyrillic alphabet into Polish. I don't know if Russia respects nation states. I'm pretty certain that if, let's say, I'm pretty certain if, let's say, China became the biggest country on earth, right, and America was like, I don't know, number 9 on the top 10 biggest economies. and the Chinese language became the lingua franca of the globe, right? It was not, let's say English in this case is no longer the lingua franca. Everybody is learning Chinese because that's the language of global power at this point. And Chinese becomes a mandated language for everyone to learn. Every American public school is going to have classes teaching Chinese. Pretty certain that a lot of people wouldn't like that. Okay. Okay. You don't want to be pedantic. You're saying that you're talking about after the 18th, after the 19th century. So you're talking about the 1900s. Um, well, the Soviet Union didn't do a very good job, but you don't want to associate the Soviet Union with Russia. I don't really see how I don't see how connecting Russia with the Soviet Union is so far fetched, given the fact that the Soviet Union was headquartered in Moscow. Uh, but I mean, we're never. I don't know. I think that if Russia became the next America, then Russia would be imposing itself. It's just a fact. I mean, that's what countries do. You may not like it. You don't have to like it, but that's what countries do when they become the big dog. Chopo, aren't you Croatian? Don't the Croats have their problems with Russia? I mean, a lot of Eastern European people are scared of Russia. I know Romanians have their reservations for Russia. They have their own concerns for Russia. I know that Polish people are terrified of Russia. Like a lot of countries in Eastern Europe are terrified of Russia. Is it completely justified? Mm, sort of, yeah. I mean, I don't think Russia is like this genocidal country. I don't think it's nowhere. I don't think it's genocidal in the sense that I don't think Russia is this genocidal maniacal country. I don't believe that. Um, I think Turkey is definitely a genocidal country, but I don't really see Russia being this genocidal country. I don't see it. Judge the government. This is see Heather Green's position in anything is the average person is a saint, the government bad. Well, who runs the government? Who runs the government? Was it not a bunch of peasants who wanted Lenin? Was it not a bunch of peasants who lifted Lenin up after he got off that train and they were singing songs about how he was going to make things better? Uh, was there not a revolution against the czar? I mean, the people most definitely have a responsibility in the shifting of government. People who run a state, government officials, are, in the end of the day, people. They are products of the very same society that the average person is a product of. So I will always say that politicians are simply a reflection of the society. When you look to the US government, what do you have? You have Republicans and you have Democrats, and they both will argue for the ideological interest of their respective parties. And Americans, almost all Americans are either Republican or Democrat. So the government itself is nothing more than a reflection of the society. But in the mind of Heather Green, average people are saints. Working man is a saint. But government always bad. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Of course, I've heard about Canada. Is anything serious? Is anything really serious happening over there? Let's look into this, shall we? Canadian truckers. Canadian truckers. I had a relationship with a Canadian girl and her father was a trucker, so maybe her dad is in this. I don't know. Canadian truckers, Ottawa police arresting demonstrators, clearing out the streets. Okay. How many truckers are even involved. What's the number of truckers involved in this thing? Okay, USA Today has an article on this. Let's do a little screen sharing. So, as the Freedom Convoy protest continues in Canada, inspiring similar anti-vaccine mandate demonstrations in other countries, some have taken to social media to suggest the event has been mostly peaceful. 100,000 truck convoy, not one building is burning, and not one person hurt. The post accumulated more than 4,700 shares. Users in the comments compared the convoy of truck drivers with the January 6th U.S. Capitol riot and Black Lives Matter demonstrations. Okay, so what's the truth? I have lost almost all patience reading articles nowadays because like every article begins with it's almost like in journalism school they teach you to start with all the boring stuff in the beginning. Just start with a bunch of boring rhetoric in the beginning that doesn't really tell the reader anything. Many times, I literally just scroll all the way to the bottom of the article and I will read an article backwards. I've done this so many times. I'm like, just get to the point already. I'm scrolling down. I've read through so many online articles, I've lost patience with it. I just scroll all the way to the bottom now. Based on our research, we rate partly false the claim that there have been no buildings burned or injuries. The exact size of the Freedom Convoy is unclear, but estimates from officials and news reports are in the thousands. There is no evidence the crowd size is anywhere near 100,000. It's true that there have been no reports of major injuries or burned buildings resulting from the demonstrations, but officials are investigating potential crimes associated with the convoy. Okay. Alberta Royal Canadian Mounted Police also arrested a group that had a large quantity of ammunition, and some protesters attempted to ram a police vehicle. Well, they seem very nice people. Good Christian folk here. 2 days after this post, demonstrators removed a fence around the tomb of the unknown soldier and the National War Memorial, the Ottawa News reported. Blah, blah, blah. Unlawful behavior. Ottawa police had responded to approximately 1,000 calls related to the demonstrations and issued more than 1,550 tickets, according to a news release. Canadian police, they love giving away tickets. I saw a little bit of this firsthand when I was in Canada. I remember we drove into this park and there was a pole, there was a toll that you had to pay to get a ticket to enter the park. And this Canadian trooper comes out and he had that circular hat. He looked like Smokey the Bear. This guy comes out and he says, yeah, the ticket will cost, the tickets in total are going to cost like, I don't know, it was like $40 or something. And then he says, you have to be out of here by this time. Failure to do so, if you fail to do so, we will punish you with it was like a $200 fine or something. And the way the guy said it, it was borderline aggressive. The guy said something like, failure to do so, I will have you fined for $200. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Okay. Canadians are freaking mean. I remember when I landed in Canada, I thought, okay, this is going to be like going to another American state. They ask you for the passport, they stamp it, you keep on going. Oh, no. When I got off that plane, I was almost immediately treated as if I was a potential terrorist. Uh, they said, Canadian citizens can go through here. If you're not a Canadian citizen, you have to go down this route. Okay, fine. So I was going down this route. I went down the escalator, and then I had some form that I had to sign. So I filled out this form. Okay, I'm in Canada. My age is this. I'm a male. I'm an American citizen. Blah blah blah. So I walk up to this border patrol guy, customs officer, and he's a Chinese Canadian guy. This Asian guy looks at me and with a perfect French accent, perfect, okay, immaculate French accent. He says, "Bonjour. Why are you is English or French?" I'm like, "English." "Why are you in Canada?" "I'm visiting a friend." "How did you meet this friend?" "Well, what are the, what were the circumstances?" He's asking me all these questions. So I answered all of his questions. And then he says, "Go down this route." So I went down this route and I got interrogated by a Pakistani Canadian woman who was aggressively asking me more questions. And then she said, "How did you purchase your ticket?" I said, "I purchased it online." She said, "Do you have any evidence of this purchase?" I said, um, it was an electronic ticket." She said, "Can you well, I want you to access your email and show me the confirmation email that you received, proving that you purchased your ticket." I said, "Well, can I get on a computer?" And she said, "No, you have to provide your own computer." So I pulled out my laptop and I had to turn the computer on and open up the email. And I'm thinking to myself, if I did not have this laptop, I would have been sent back. I mean, it was crazy. So if I didn't have that laptop, I would have spent all the money for the tickets completely in vain. It would have been a waste of money. It was just, I don't know. I just don't like it. Okay. I'm sure those Canadian protesters are great people. I agree with the truckers. I think the truckers are right. They shouldn't have to go through that rigmarole. I sympathize with their cause. Salam alaikum. Welcome to Canada. White pistol Quebec. Chinese Canadians are true Quebecois. Theodore, get Mercury Reader for reading articles, online articles. Get it on Google. Okay, thank you. I mean, Theo, you are Palestinian. You are ripe for the picking for airport. They were literally treating me like they were just drilling me. And it's amazing that I remember on the flight back to the US, I went through customs in America. They didn't treat me like that. This American guy was like, uh, why are you coming to America? I'm a US citizen. I'm a US citizen. Absolutely. Here's my ID. Okay, welcome to America. Goodbye. Welcome back. I remember I went to Italy. It was insane. I went to I went to Italy, right? The Italians are real laid back. They just look at your passport. You have like two Italian ladies talking amongst themselves. And when I was that in Italy or was that in Spain? I remember in my second trip to Spain, there were these two Spanish, these were the customs agents. They were the customs officers protecting Spain from all enemies foreign. And there were these two Spanish women talking about whatever in Spanish. They were probably talking about the salon that they're going to visit after work or something. I literally hand them my passport. This woman is talking to her female coworker, and as she's talking, she just slams the stamp on the passport and gives it back to me like nothing happened. Like, "Welcome to Spain, bienvenidos," and that was it. And then I remember coming back to America from Spain. I came to the U.S. There was a customs agent guy there, and he says, for what reason were you in Spain? I said, "Oh, for work. I was doing something for a nonprofit, for a charity." He goes, "Oh, that's awesome, man. Here, welcome back to America." And I just went on my way. And then I went to Italy. The Italians were super laid back. And then I came back to the US. And I remember I remember when I was in the airport, let's see, where was I? I landed in I want to say I landed in Georgia. The country, the state, not the country. And I remember some guy said, "What brings you to America?" And I said, I'm a U.S. citizen." He goes, "You mean you're coming back to the country where dreams come alive?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Welcome back, my friend." Like there was no interrogation. There was none of that nonsense. How dare you accuse me, sir? I've seen the Auto Walks live stream and saw nothing but loving people. Psyops are done. Italy and Spain, what's the difference? Very little difference. I would say that the Spanish are probably a little bit cleaner than the Italians, and I think the Spanish have better cooking. No, and nothing to do with my father. These people have no idea who I am. Ted is the most boring ass voice possible. I support the truckers. Yeah, pretty much. I really, I just, I don't even care about this. Yeah, if I called her a bitch after showing her the email, then they would call security and have me arrested and have me further interrogated. Don't you dare bring Indonesia into this conversation. You know how terrible the Canadians treated the natives. If they treat those natives to the land so bad, how else would they? Yeah, Canadians are very disrespectful to people. I don't like them. I mean, God, that sounded so racist. I have no issue with Canadians. Okay, been to Canada, but the way that they treat people who are obviously Americans, and America is the country that gives prosperity to Canada and dictates the Canadian economy. The way that they treat Americans, um, I think is awful. Um, yeah. Sir, why does Indonesia is named after India? Then Sir, I like how the Romanian guy here, he can perfectly write just like an Indian would write. You can't be racist against Canadians. I mean, you kind of can. The Canadian question. I say America annex Canada. We should annex it. We should give half of Canada to Russia, half of Canada to the US. But we'll give the Russians the uninhabitable part of Canada. America will get the best parts. We'll get Calgary and the areas that actually have money. I remember when I was in Canada, they were driving me through the Canadian countryside, which is amazing. And I remember seeing just miles and miles and miles of land that was utterly flat and empty. And I said, "What's this land?" And I said, "It's so flat." And they said, "Oh, this is an Indian reservation." I said, "It's just acres of nothing. What do they do with the land?" They said, "Nothing. They don't do anything with the land." I said, "Why not?" And this Canadian guy, he says to me, "Because they're natives." Oh, God. I remember people I've heard my entire life. Uh I've been hearing people say we should give the land back to the Native Americans. If you want to know if that were to happen, right? For one thing, it would be just ethically speaking, it would be an utter disaster because what are you going to do with hundreds of millions of people who aren't Native American? But let's say you give the land back to the natives, right? What do you do with all the people who aren't native? Are they going to like live under Native American rule? I mean, there's so much I can say about this. So let's say you give the land back to the Native Americans, right? This is never going to happen, but let's say that it does. And let's say you allow all citizens to live in America, right? Nothing would change. The only change would be who is running America, right? In this case, we would be under Native Americans. They would get rid of the Constitution because the Constitution was made by the occupiers, and then they would replace the government with tribal law. So now we're all under the government of the tribal confederacy of the Apaches and Comanches and whatever. What would happen is that the extremely rich people in America, the people who are billionaires, they would just go up to the Native American tribal government and they're going to say, "Hey, I got a lot of money and I am a huge resource and I'm a huge asset for the economy. So you need me, which means you want things to get done, you're going to have to listen to me." And what would happen in the end would be simply put that the rich would just rule and the elites would rule, and we would have a Native American government, but the rich would still dictate things in society. And America would just probably go right down to a third world country where you have a very wealthy oligarchy calling the shots under the guise of some tribal government. It would be, I think, probably something similar to South Africa. But then let's say you have America ruled by the natives, and then everyone who's not native has to leave, right? Because hey, Native Americans and leftists, they're not racist; they just believe in justice, but they want to deport all the non-natives out. So they deport all the non-natives out. Where do white people go? Well, they all going to go to Europe because the ancestors came from Europe. Okay, what about white people who have like 1/3 or 1/4 Native American blood? Because a lot of Americans have native blood. That's why I think when I see somebody from Europe, even though they're white, I can always tell just by looking at them. They don't even have to tell me anything. I can just look at a European and I can say that guy's European. There is definitely some physical characteristics that I think distinguish Europeans from Americans. Even if you have two Americans who are both white, you can usually tell who's a European and who's an American just by looking at them. Sometimes it's the face, sometimes it's the stomach, but there is definitely a distinct characteristic that denotes an American and denotes a European. And when I was in Italy, I would look at somebody and say, that's an American, 100%. And I think some of it has to do with the dramatic differences in culture between America and Europe. And I think culture does in a way shape your countenance. Kind of like how if you were to, let's say you take some young man who has never seen war before and he's very naive and very innocent, and you force him to join the army and he has to fight in World War One. He's going to come back looking different. Just his countenance, his constitution, the way he walks, the way he talks, everything's going to change. So culture and experience, I think, definitely does have a role to play in a person's physicality. And I think another reason why Americans look different than Europeans is because of native blood. I think that a lot of Americans have a little bit of Native American blood here and there, and I think that does have a role to play in their difference, in their physical differences. Sometimes you'll see white Americans with very very high cheekbones, like Native Americans. Just like there are certain people from Sweden who have very high cheekbones. I think that has something to do with intermixture with Sami people, and Sami people are basically like the Native Americans of Northern Europe. So that's my thought on that. But what do you do with the white Americans who have 1/8 Apache, 1/9 Comanche? Are they also supposed to go to Europe? Are you going to have to now do DNA tests on every single white American to see if they have some kind of native blood? What do you do with Middle Eastern people? What do you do with people who are Middle Eastern? What do you do with them? We'll go back to the Middle East. Which part of the Middle East? Iraq, Lebanon, which part of the Middle East? And what about people like myself who are of European and Middle Eastern heritage? What do you do with people like that? It's like the people who say they want an American ethno state. I mean, how would you do it? People who are mixed with other things who look kind of white. What do you do with Jewish people? Where did Jews go? Well, they go to Israel. Okay, so you want to deport 6 million, or how many Jews live in America? I think it's 6 million Jews live in America. You're gonna deport 6 million Jews to Israel. I mean, it's just it sounds like a perfect storm for just an absolute just for an absolute disaster. It's just a very stupid idea. It's called not being morbidly obese. My chief, my chief red nose hears wallets of Jew wallets jingling means great financial gain in the future for the casino. I mean, ultimately, like rich people, they are the rulers. I mean, not entirely, but I would say that people who control the finances, they have a huge, um, they have a huge position in society. Native Americans most definitely are Turkic people. Yes, their ancestors came from Siberia. Yes, I agree, Heather. The truckers are very, very important for our society. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. No doubt about that. Don't give back land to the Native Americans who would run the casinos. The whole Native American thing is just so freaking dumb. I remember, oh my gosh. How long has it been since I began streaming? The question of what to do with 6 million Jews. No, I knew somebody was going to jump on this. How many Jews live in America? Hold on. Jewish, let's see, Jewish population. US. How many Jews? There are 7.6 million Jews living in America. So what are we going to do with over 7 million Jews in the US? You going to send them all back to Israel? If we sent all 7 million Jews back to Israel, Israel would be an even bigger superpower. The question, let's see, send all non-natives to Bosnia. Bosnia is steak big. Are you English? Isn't England a very luscious and fertile place? You can grow anything in England, almost anything. You're 1/8 Jewish. I guess you would go to Israel. But do you live in England or where? They should send all non-natives to the Balkans. What would happen if you sent every non-native from America to the Balkans? This is what would happen. Your crime rate would go up through the roof. Murder rate would go up through the roof. And then the people would be complaining about guns, and they'd be saying, "Where are our guns? Serbia or wherever Balkan country they're in, you got to give us guns, or else we're gonna revolt." Like it would be worse than the wars of the '90s. It would be such a disaster. And then a bunch of white guys from Texas would probably team up with some crazy Balkan people, and they'd be like, "Hey, Mister Popovich, you ain't so bad yourself. How about we just get ourselves some of these guns over here, and we go out and take care of this corrupt government that's not allowing us to have our true freedoms. What do you say, Mr. Yankovic?" Yankovic is like, "I like your attitude, Mr." I'm thinking of a Texas last name. Mr. Gerhard, I like your attitude. Let's do that right now. And then you would have some American military veterans working with some Belgrade, Herzegovina paramilitaries, and then you would have another Balkan war, and then the what would happen in the end is that the white Americans would just take over. Yankovic, isn't that a very common Serbian last name? Texan inbreds allying with Balkan bros. Oh, they're not inbreds. They are the descendants of German immigrants. That's what happened pretty much in Mexico. There were Texas rebels who were working with Mexicans to overthrow the state. Americans are crazy people. People don't real Americans hate it when you bring this up. They get real sensitive about this, but it is a fact. Americans are just there are crazy people here. Crazy. They're nutty people here. There's so many people in America who have a ridiculous amount of guns, and they're all fantasizing about the government being tyrannical and we have to overthrow the state and we're going to have a race war and whites and blacks are going to go to war with each other and yada yada. There's so much of this that goes on. But to be fair, there are a lot of crazy people in the Balkans as well. I've read about the Balkan Wars in the 90s. There was a story that I read. I think it was I think I remember reading this from what's that guy's name? Noam Chomsky. He talked about how during the war there was a group of Croats. They went to a Serbian family's home, broke into the home, killed the whole family, and then went around looking for money in the house. They searched throughout the entire house looking for cash, and they could only find like I think it was like 4,000 Deutschmarks or something. And there was a Croat who their driver for this gang was waiting outside in the car, and these Croat guys come out and they said all we could find was 4,000 Deutschmarks. And this Croatian guy's like, only 4,000 Deutschmarks? What the hell? That's just drive, guys. And he just drove on. This guy hit the accelerator and drove off. And I'm like, man, I remember reading that story. I was like, that's a crazy ass story. Yeah, the inbred thing is a huge stereotype. It's not really as common as people make it out to be. It really isn't that common as people make it out to be. Yeah, but you know very well, Mr. Chopo, that there would be people in the Balkans who would work with the Americans because if you have hundreds of millions of Americans living in your country, I mean, you better be nice to them because they're outnumbering you. Teo, why don't you come on here and we have a discussion? I can finally actually have a conversation with you. Maybe we can have a debate or something, or we can finally settle our differences regarding Turkey or whatever it is that you disagree with me on. Hold on, guys. Parents are sleeping right now. Well, why don't you go out to the balcony? Okay, guys, we're going back to the Netherlands. What's the Heineken? Yeah. The Heineken beer, yeah. Using the German Festool bottle opener. It's a very effective and prime German technology, yeah. Cheers. Lager, yeah. All beer pretty much tastes the same, guys. I've searched far and wide looking for the perfect beer. The best beer I ever tasted was a German beer called I think I've talked about this before. Saint Stefana beer. I forgot. I think it was something like that. Very good beer. But I've tried all American and European lagers. They're all really good. My dad's not speaking tonight. My dad's speaking on Sunday morning or Sunday night, Sunday evening, 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern time. Fanta Shikata. What is that? Is that some kind of soda pump? It's amazing how much the time has passed. I was born in 1990. I was born in the last decade of the 20th century. And then you figure out being born in 1990, now it's almost like being born in 1970 or 1960. It's insane when you think about it because we had 1990, 2000, 2010. Now we're in 2000 in 2020. Now we're in 2022. It's insane. I thought about the music thing. I don't know if I can do it because the last time I did it, YouTube got upset with me because of I played that lousy band that you guys never shut up about. ACDC, ACDC. It's like, can you guys? The whole time I was thinking, can you guys get a little bit more creative? Give me a band that I haven't heard of. Joshua George is good at giving me some bands I never heard of. Could you guys give me some bands I never heard of? It's almost like your guys are asking me to play "We Will Rock You" by by whatever that name of the singer, Prince or Queen or whatever. We will. We. I hate that stupid song. It's so stupid. AC/DC is one of the worst bands ever, right next to Guns N' Roses, which also sucks. I can do music, but no, please, for the love of God, do not ask me to do AC/DC. Don't ask me to play an AC/DC. Everybody's like, AC/DC, play this. It's War Dogs by AC/DC, Metallica, like the most generically known bands in the universe. Guys, get a little bit more creative. Get a little more creative. I hate that music so much. But yet again, I know music is relative, and the music that people enjoy is really determined by the internal disposition of their own souls. The way that you feel inside is going to determine the type of music that you listen to. I remember somebody said, don't listen to the music that fits what you feel inside. Listen to the music that you would be listening to if you were happy. That never works for me. Abu Hamza bin Shuhuk. Where are you from, Abu Hamza? Van Halen. No, enough. No, come on. No Van Halen. Van Halen, Metallica, AC/DC. Enough. It's Linkin Park. Okay, that's way better than anything from AC/DC. God, I hate that music so much. I hate it every time I hear it. I remember I went to a wedding years ago, back in 2000 and what was it? 2006. I went to a wedding. No, I think it was in 07. I went to a wedding in San Diego. And I hated this wedding so much. Why did I hate this wedding so much? Because I had to go all the way to San Diego, Southern California. On every table in the wedding, they had, I kid you not, they had a fish bowl with a Chinese fighting fish. Each table had a bowl with the Chinese fighting fish in it. And each table also had a bowl that had half blue jelly beans and half pink jelly beans. The pink jelly beans representing the bride, the blue representing the groom. And it was so pretentious. The whole thing was pretentious. And then they had assigned seating, which to me is an insult because you're basically telling me that my seat kind of reflects how you think about me. And of course, my table is in the back somewhere. It's like people should be they should just sit wherever the hell they want. I don't need assigned seating. I don't understand this assigned seating nonsense. Who's being arrested? Mediterranean, who's being arrested? I'm talking about weddings and somebody's talking about being arrested. Who's being arrested? Truckers? Anyway. I hate assigned seating because if somebody invites you to a wedding and then you go to the wedding and then they say, "Yeah, you're supposed to sit here." It's like, "Why? This is the worst seat ever. You're going to put me here?" It's like the woman I think is the one who dictates everything in the wedding. So the woman was just spending hours looking at the seating. She was like, "We'll put Ted. We'll put him here. We'll put Billy and Chad and Amanda in the front. But Ted has to go here." I kid you not. They had me sitting next to this old Jewish woman. Her name was I think her name was Margaret or something. Margaret. She was this old Jewish woman from California. And she had her old Jewish husband with her. And she says, she says, because when you're in a wedding, right? What do you start thinking? If you're single and you're in a wedding, what are you always thinking about? You're thinking about you're thinking about, why am I not married? Shit. Time's running out, right? Especially if you're like 30, you go to a wedding. Well, why am I not married? So she starts telling us about her husband, because her husband's old, right? He was old man. He's older than her. So she says, when we go to the cinema, my husband has a lot, and she had the accent. My husband has a lot of money, and a lot of women at the synagogue, they're eyeing my husband because they want his money. And I'm afraid that, after I die, if he's still alive, they're gonna take him away and marry him, or I'm afraid my husband's gonna divorce me and marry some younger woman, and then she's gonna take all the money. She's literally saying this. So there was this other, yeah, and then there was this other Jewish guy. They put all the Romania is right. They put us in the table for the Semitic people. There was this other Jewish guy that was there, and him and I started talking. He was an Arab Jew. He wasn't an Ashkenazi Jew, and literally, while everybody was dancing, me and this Jewish guy were roaming around, taking all the Chinese fighting fishes from the from the tables, and we were planning on taking them back home, and we eventually didn't because we realized that we would never be able to get those fishes past the flight. So there was this Mexican lady who was working at the hotel. She was one of the maids at the hotel that the wedding was taking place in. And we said, "Hey, you want these fishes?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll give them to my son. My son will love these fishes." And she took them. So anyway, everybody's dancing in the wedding except me and this Jewish guy, and they're dancing to AC/DC. And I remember hearing about that music sucks. I never said there was anything wrong with dancing. What a nightmare! Yeah, it was just very boring. Used to be the groom and or his family were planners of ceremony, and bride and or her family planned reception. Most reasonable couples look down on the bridezilla crap, especially in the South. I think in the South maybe they have more modest weddings. Oh yeah, and by the way, you were either given you had the choice of chicken or beef. Of course, I got beef, and the beef was basically raw. I was like, "This meat is raw. It's raw. It's not even cooked." While claiming the moral left-wing high ground, it's true, Ted. As a Canadian, it's true, but not everyone. Okay. You're too rough on AC/DC, Ted. There's far worse. Yeah, you're right. There is far worse. It's called Slayer. That's another shitty band. I hate that guy. I hate that music. They're like Nickelback sucks. Okay, can you suggest something better? Slayer. It's like, oh wow. Oh, so Slayer is better than Nickelback. Okay, so I go on YouTube. I look up Slayer. Literally every song from Slayer sounds the same. Every single song is like and there's nothing beautiful in this music. It's just ugly garbage. Yeah, I was pulling a Gordon Ramsay. It's raw. Why do I hate Guns N' Roses? Because their music, it's just some guy who sounds like a screeching cat. There's nothing good about it. I don't know. I was never into it. A fair amount of regular police have already stepped away. I have to think the ones moving. Sister Tenacious, are you Canadian, by the way? I'm just wondering. Listen, guys, the trucker thing, I could be completely wrong about this, but more than likely, the story is going to be forgotten in a couple of months. At most, a couple of months. In a couple of months, it's going to be forgotten. The whole thing. We're not even going to be having. We're not even going to be having this discussion. Which part of Canada did you live in? Were you in Alberta or Toronto, Vancouver? Which part? Baba Novak. Is this going to be some? The cool thing about Balkan music is that you guys don't have all the crazy copyrights, so I think I'm pretty safe playing. Yeah, the trucker thing, it's going to be forgotten in like a couple of months. It's like, oh, I just thought of something. Australia. I remember everybody was talking about the Australian protesters. Who's talking about it? No one's talking about it. Nobody's talking about the Australian guys who were marching around by the hundreds. And people were saying, oh, thousands of Aussies, thousands of angry Aussies. There was like a few hundred people on a street. Was it even a big thing? I mean, people aren't even talking about it anymore. Nobody cares about the Australian protesters. It's the same thing with these truckers. One thing that people need to understand when it comes to human society, and the only society truly is human. I mean, there's no bird society, okay? Is that crazy things are going to happen. People are going to be protesting. People are going to be rioting. People are going to do all sorts of things. It doesn't mean that automatically we're going to hit a revolution or a civil war. It doesn't mean that. So, for example, if you have a bunch of people rioting because they hate the police, which is what happened in 2020, that didn't lead to a civil war. Not at least not automatically. Maybe eventually it will, but it didn't automatically lead to it. America has always had riots. What's up, Christian? We've always had riots, guys. Back in I think it was in the 1850s, there was a series of riots against Irish Catholics in Pennsylvania. Didn't lead to a war. Didn't lead to a civil war. There have been riots against African Americans in this country. There have been lynch mobs against Italians. Been all sorts of crazy things that have happened in North America. Doesn't mean it's the end of America. Doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You're always going to have crazy things happening. But eventually, what happens is that there is the bullet, there's the gun that's fired, and we don't know who pulled the trigger, and something indeed does escalate into a war. That does happen. My point is that just because something chaotic is taking place or something very different is taking place does not mean it's automatically going to lead to a war. It may mean that it could be one event out of an accumulation or amalgamation of events that would lead up to a war, but it doesn't mean that that particular event means a war is going to happen overnight. Heather, in the mind of Heather Green, the working class is basically God. The working class, this, the working class, that. Just because you're working class doesn't mean you're, I don't know, something special. People forget about all sorts of shit, Heather. People forget about all sorts of stuff. We had 9/11. We had 9 freaking 11. No one gives a shit about 9/11 anymore. Isn't that crazy? Over 3,000 Americans got slaughtered on American soil. Nobody gives a shit. What's amazing is that there are people who are in college who don't even think about 9/11 because they weren't born or they weren't even alive at that time. There are people today who were born in 03, 04, and they're in college or maybe they're graduating and or they've already graduated and they don't even remember. They have no psychological connection to 9/11. But I remember the day. I remember 9/11 like it happened yesterday. I remember I was sleeping uh like I always was. I was sleeping in, didn't want to go to school, and my mom was like, "Ted, come here right now." And I was like, "I'm sleeping, dang it." She's like, "Come here right now. Something's happening." And I swear I thought I heard her say something's happening in Egypt because I was so dead tired that I thought she said Egypt. And I literally said, "I don't care about Egypt." So then I get up and I saw the screen and I saw the towers. I saw one of the towers got hit and then I saw the second plane. It was just it was insane. And I remember going to school and everybody was in shock. Everybody was terrified. I remember my teacher, Mrs. Bruno, who was a hardcore Democrat, hardcore liberal, screaming at us, "We are at war." Pretty much every class, be it math or whatever, was effectively non-existent because everybody was talking about 9/11. And every class you walked into, they had a television screen on, playing the news live. That's all we were consumed by. We were totally consumed by the fact that thousands of Americans were butchered within our borders. And then I remember we had the first 9/11 memorial, and you had this huge crowd, and the president was there, and they were reading out all the names of the people who died. And then, Bush was president, and during his presidency, we would always have the 9/11 memorial every year, and it was a big thing. And then Obama became president. We still had the 9/11 memorial, and it was still kind of a big thing under Obama. Then we had Trump, and by the time you hit like Obama's second term, no one really then really nobody gives a shit. And then we had Trump, and really nobody gave a shit about it. And yeah, nobody cares about it. People forget about all sorts of stuff. People forget about all sorts of stuff. People forget about Iraq. People don't give a shit about Afghanistan anymore. People don't give a shit about um what happened in Libya in the embassy. Uh People don't care. Nobody cares. People forget about all sorts of stuff. So this trucker thing, it's going to be forgotten eventually. That's why I don't give a shit. It's going to be forgotten. It's going to be forgotten. Do most Canadians support the truckers? Probably not. Probably a substantial I would assume that a substantial amount of them do, but probably most Canadians don't give a shit about it either. They just want normal life to assume, to resume itself. So, anyway, 1 second, guys, hold on. Someone's calling me. Hold on, 1 second. Anyway, guys, no one gives a shit about 9/11 anymore. People forget about all sorts of things. It's just a yeah, exactly, steak bake. It's gonna be irrelevant in a year. No one's gonna care. If Canadians are so conservative, how come they voted? I remember they had Harper for years. Harper was very conservative, I remember. And then they got Trudeau. And Trudeau's been there since forever. He's been there since what? I think Obama was still president when Trudeau got elected. Things happen, man. The Yellow Vest movement. Now, the Yellow Vest movement, though, a little bit different. A little bit different because I think the anger to the government is still lingering very intensely. And France does have a very strong history of just a revolution, way more so than North America. Oh, so now Trudeau was elected through voter fraud. I don't know if you could even prove that. If you could prove that, then fine, but I don't know how you could prove it. Aren't the French still writing? I mean, the French are very rebellious people, extremely rebellious people. So I wouldn't say the Yellow Vest movement is the same, because the Yellow Vest movement simply remanifested itself into the anti-vaccine movement, and the fact that Zemmour is very popular shows that the animosity towards the government is still definitely there. He's Castro's baby's daddy. Can anybody actually prove that though? Do you know? I heard the same thing about Obama. When Obama was president, they were saying that he was the son of some black communist or something like that. Like conservatives love getting into paternity tests for their political leaders. Oh, Baba Novak. Okay, we'll get into this, buddy. Baba Novak. It's gonna be some Croatian song. Am I even gonna like it? Am I even gonna enjoy this? Baba Novak. Okay, so Pierre Trudeau was a playboy. That automatically means that Trudeau is what? That Trudeau is the son of some Cuban communist? Frank Marshall David. There you go. That's exactly what they were saying when Obama was president. They couldn't even fully prove it. He's the son of Frank Marshall David. How can you prove it? Prove it. Obama looks half white. There's no doubt about it. He's definitely the son of his mother. I'm pretty certain I've played this song, Phoenix. I'm pretty certain I played this. I'm gonna hold on. If I've heard the song again, I'm gonna turn it off. I'm gonna remind you that I played this song. Hold on. Internal speakers. I've heard this before. This sounds like such a stereotypical Balkan song. Who cares where the key came from? It's like, what exactly? Why does it even matter? Okay, let's say Trudeau is the son of whoever. Who cares? Does it matter? Is Canada Cuba all of a sudden? Like, who? I don't understand how somebody's. Anyway, gory New York. Many people are pushing back when it's coming to their kids and their means to feed and shelter them. Oh God, no, the genetics thing. I don't know. Can Trudeau speak Spanish? Who cares? Honestly, who gives a shit? Trudeau is gonna be gone. He's gonna be irrelevant. Who gives a shit? How can someone talk for such a long time? Jane, if it bothers you that I'm talking, you don't have to listen. Oh, nice. The nurses are watching me. Uh, don't deny genetics. So somebody is genetically predisposed to communism. How can somebody prove this? What's the communist genetic? Is there a gene for communism, guys? I had an uncle who was a communist. He was a Palestinian communist. I'm not a communist. Well, not my uncle. I guess you could say great uncle. My father had an uncle who was a hardcore, staunch atheist communist. Palestinians aren't the most religious people. Everyone thinks they're all like super Muslims over there. Um, no, a lot of Palestinians are atheist, hardcore commies. They're not really. Some of them are religious, but not all of them. I mean, there's a huge political rivalry between the PLO and Hamas, and they hate each other. In fact, in Israeli prison, when they have all the Palestinian prisoners, they have to separate the Hamas people from they have to separate the Hamas people from the PLO people because they will kill each other in prison. The nurses in the ER, you don't have to watch me, guys. You can turn it off if you want. I'm just trying to. I'm still asking. I'm still wondering what's the communist gene? What's the gene that you inherit if you're a communist? What's the communist gene? The Carl gene, the Marx gene. What's the gene that you inherit that makes you communist? Because there are Cubans who are communists, and there are Cubans who are so sick of communism they come to Florida and they're hardcore Republicans. So I'm still wondering what's the gene that makes you communist or whatever. There are Jews who are hardcore capitalists. There are also Jews who are hardcore commies. So which I like are the communist Jews? Do they have the Jewish communist gene, and the hardcore capitalist Jews? Do they have the capitalist gene? Like which one is it? The Stalin gene. I agree, Heather Green. We do need to be balanced when we're talking about genetics. I think genetics do have a role. They do have some kind of role in your behavior. I think that's pretty undeniable. But I wouldn't say that just because you have certain genetic disposition that you're automatically um, that automatically you're going to be a certain ideology or religion. The Führer gene, the German gene, guys. It's the German genetics. Oh God. Been talking for almost 2 hours already. A communist gene is like saying one has a Taco Bell gene. I've heard that so many times. They're like, "Oh, these people have this genetic and blah blah blah. That's why they're this way. It's like, well, how can you prove that? I remember years ago, atheists were talking about the God gene. They were trying to prove that people are genetically, they have like genetic proclivities towards religion. It might break 30. Let's hope it. Let's get 30 people up on stream. Gory New York for some having Serbian. Okay, let's play Gory New York, guys. Here we go. Serbian song. Oh, you know what? Screw you, dude. Seriously. Seriously. I thought that was a real song, like an actual, like legit song. This is no. This is a song on 9/11. But yeah, the Serbs are making fun of people dying or whatever because they got bombed in Sarajevo or whatever. Hello, Panel Kosturos. I know it's a real song, but it's a song that's obviously mocking. What are the lyrics for this song? I'm not going to listen to this nonsense. I don't like this music. I don't like that crazy accordion music that some of you people listen to. I'm just thinking of like some guy grilling kebabs and then like another guy next to him like cutting some guy's head off or something like that. Some of you, I don't know. Say I know I talk shit about Americans being crazy, but some of them Eastern Europeans give me the absolute creeps. For example, let's talk about some. We talk a lot about American brutality. Let's talk a little bit about Eastern European brutality. Okay, so I remember years ago. I found a video. It came from Dagestan, and it was a video of literally. I don't recommend anyone watch this video. It was horrific, but there was a group of these Chechen or Dagestani separatists invaded a village, and then these Russian soldiers they evacuated the entire village, and then they stayed in the village to fight. They got outgunned, and they were held hostage, and then the terrorists they filmed as they filmed themselves slowly cutting up these Russian soldiers with these long knives, and they were laughing and smirking and smiling as these Russian soldiers cried in agony and excruciating pain while their tormentors slowly butchered them with knives as if they were animals. It was absolutely horrific. Now, I hear people say, "Oh, Putin, no, he bombed the Caucasus." God bless Putin for bombing those people. Some of you guys are very sensitive to foul language, but what I will say is, I'm going to say F the North Caucasus, okay? I don't really give a shit about that place. Anyway. And then you read about people killing other people for their organs, for organs trafficking. I've read about, I remember seeing a video, it was a Russian mercenaries. Russian mercenaries slowly killing a Syrian man. Oh, yes. There were some articles talking about it. And they said, oh, yes, oh, yes, there was this video that was found, and it shows this Syrian guy being slowly tortured to death and blah, blah, blah. But then I actually found the video and watched it. I couldn't watch it. I watched some of it. I turned it off. I'm not watching this. They have this weird Russian music playing in the back. It was kind of like Russian bass core music. Think life of Boris type thing. And They were slowly torturing the Syrian man. One guy had a sledgehammer, and it was like that scene from Misery. They were hitting this guy with a sledgehammer. It was bad. It was nasty. It was nasty. Uh, I mean, let's talk about the story of Andrei Chikatilo. The guy murdered dozens of people. I think 80 people in Ukraine. Eight ate his victims. There was the story of the school in I forget which part of Russia, but the Chechens went into the school and they killed all the kids. I mean, Eastern Europeans can talk shit all they want, but they have a bunch of effed up stuff. Oh, and let's talk about the Croatian Ustashi. How they killed around 1 million or so people. Killed people with hammers, butchered people as if they were killing people in ways they wouldn't even kill chickens with. It's just horrific. Horrific. So, yeah. They're just, yeah, you got this like accordion music, and then some guy's like baking kebabs, and the other guy's like butchering some guy. I mean, that's that's the type of sick stuff that happens. I mean, it's yeah. I'll stop with that. I can go on. We can talk about the Ukrainians and what they did to the Poles. We can talk about uh what the Croats did to the Serbs. We can talk about what the Albanians did to the to Serbian people and to even fellow Albanians. We can talk about all those things. Linkin Park. Finally, somebody has some good music. Okay, guys. Linkin Park. Six. Nice. Nice. Okay, right from the beginning, I'm going to say that this rhythm is really good. That's really good stuff. I gotta take this song, put it in my iTunes. Let's talk about the Chetniks. Tell me more about the Chetniks and how brutal they were. Let's talk more about that Balkan brutality. Can we talk about genetics? I mean, what do you want me, what do you want to say? Okay, that people are genetically do you want to come on here and talk about it with me? Is that what you want to do, or what? I'm definitely going to be saving this song. This is a gem. This Linkin Park song is a gem, man. Some people are genetically this, some people are genetically that. It's like, well, even if that's true, okay, what do you do with that? I mean, what do you do with that? 45 Shine Down. Shine Down 45. Not bad. Nice. It's like a Seether. I'm getting Seether vibes. Nice. Nice. Good. This is really good. Oh, this is really good. I like this. I'll be saving this one. How we can improve society. How are you going to improve society? What are you going to do? You got to like, are you going to implement a policy of eugenics or what? Is there certain music that you won't listen to, like Marilyn Manson? I will not listen to Marilyn Manson. No, I don't like his music. I don't listen to Guns N' Roses. I do not listen to AC/DC. I like. I'm very much. I like the grunge sound. I have not heard of Shinedown. No, this is very nice. How can we improve society? I mean, maybe we should just implement like embryo selection and just take the embryos that have the best genes and throw the rest out. Why not? I mean, let's just have a society like in that book. What was it called? Brave New World. Let's just have a Brave New World society and implement genetic engineering on humans. Let's just treat humans like commodities. Great idea, right? I do not like Nirvana, no. Even though Nirvana is considered to be kind of like um the father of grunge rock. I'm not too crazy about him. I think he was a weirdo. What about the knowledge that DNA is one of the most sophisticated codes ever designed? Oh, 100%. DNA definitely does prove God's existence. Definitely. Definitely proves the existence of an eternal engineer. I mean, the focus on genetics, it's like we are all eugenists. Oh God. Okay, I've heard this argument so many times. Chesterton actually dealt with this argument. Um, do you want to come on here and actually like have a discussion with me, or do you want to just type stuff? We are all eugenists. Yeah, like when I'm looking at a girl, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about like her genetic code, man. Who does that? I don't know. 1 in 4 people worldwide have antisocial personality disorder. So I mean, yeah. Anyway, what else is there to talk about? No, we're not all eugenics. Plenty of ugly and yeah, there's like millions of people who have handicaps and have disabilities. It's like we're all eugenics. Well, if that's the case, then how come we have all these people who are have disabilities? How come we have people who are not that intelligent? How come we have people like it just doesn't make any sense to generalize people as all eugenists. And also, if we're all eugenists, what is the point of even talking about eugenics? We're all eugenists. So what's the point of even getting into the discussion? What's the point of talking about genetics and the importance of genetics to better society, as you suggest, when hey, we're all eugenists, so it should all be fine, genetically speaking. Yes, I love System of a Down. Did you ever research the dark side of music and the occult? Yes, I have. Reading about Black Sabbath and how they were into some like really old witchcraft or something like that. Yes, I agree, Frank. Those who have disabilities are here and they allow us to be even more humane than we otherwise are left to our own arrogance. Yep, I completely agree. Completely agree with that. I think that the presence of animals, the presence of people with disabilities, with handicaps, I think all of these people are here so that we may be humane. We may be compassionate to them. And it's almost like they're a test to see how compassionate we are. Yes, I did. I just told you. I've researched it. Yes, I've looked into it. Somebody sent me something. The Reverend Juraj Gospodonek was a Croatian priest who was tortured and murdered by Chetniks during the Bosansko Grahovo massacre. Yeah, this is pretty horrific. We subconsciously think about it. Okay, again with this. Okay, when you say that we are all eugenists, what that means is that we're thinking about genetics. We're thinking about genetic engineering. That's what that means. It doesn't mean we subconsciously. What about people who? Oh my gosh! What about people who marry midgets? Are they subconsciously thinking about eugenics? I've heard of people, normal people, people who aren't dwarfs, marrying dwarfs. I've seen it before. Are those people not thinking about? Are they not subconsciously thinking about eugenics? Or are they thinking subconsciously about eugenics? I don't know. That just does. It just doesn't make any sense. Some people are born deaf. Some people are born blind. Some people are born without limbs. Some people are born dwarfs. Some people are born whatever. Rusty, even if that's true, it still negates, it still diminishes the affirmation that we're subconsciously thinking about eugenics. If we were, we wouldn't have those people wouldn't have those ideas. And according to all of the eugenist people, they say that Africans or like Africans have lower IQs or whatever. Okay, forget all that. Here's a question that I have for you. Here's a question that I have for you. Um you argued initially that communism, people turn to communism because of their genetic disposition. That's your belief. Asians are said to have the highest IQs. Asians are always, when you look at all these people who analyze IQs by race, they analyze IQ by race. They always say that Asians have the highest IQs, more than whites. Okay. How come so many Korean people, half of Korea went against communism and half of Korea subscribed to communism? So do half of Koreans who were supposedly, they're Asian, they're East Asian, so they have very high IQs. How come all the North Koreans went to the side of communism? Do they have somehow, are they lower on the IQ level of the in the Asian department? And they're and the thing is that they're all Koreans. I mean, they speak the same language. They are Korean. They're part of the high IQ strata in the IQ spectrum. Half of them went to communism. They have low IQs. Half of them have low IQs, lower IQs. Do half of Koreans have the pro-communist gene? We waste a. I agree, Frank. I agree. I appreciate your compassion. I agree, Joshua George. It is disgusting. I don't know why people get so caught up into the genetic. I am genetically this. I am genetically that. It's like they always say Northeast Asians have the highest IQs. That's what they all say. Okay, so a huge chunk of China subscribed to communism. The ones who didn't went to Taiwan. Are the ones in all these people in China who are communists, they have the communist gene, but the Chinese people who went down south, they don't have the communist gene. The Hong Kongers don't have it. half of Koreans have it, but the other half doesn't. The Southerners don't, but the Northerners do. How do you determine all this stuff? And what is the point? What is the point of even discussing this stuff about eugenics? I'm not worried about genetics. I'm more concerned about the kind of person they are. Yeah, exactly. Much of the very reason why more taxation on little guy and Main Street being counterproductive. This has been happening since the Wilson era. Oh, okay. So environment also plays a role on. Oh, hold on, and it plays a role on genetic potential. Okay, so what is it about the environment in North Korea that got people to subscribe to communism? And what is it about the Russian environment that got people to subscribe to communism? How come so many Russians subscribed to communism, but then you had all the white Russians, not by white, I don't mean race. I mean the white Russians, the white army that was anti-communist. How come there were all these other Russians that subscribed to the white army, the white army's anti-communism, even though they lived relatively in the same environments? How come there was a civil war in Finland between Finns? One side was nationalist, one side was communist. How come you had a civil war in America? One side was pro-Confederate, one side was pro-Union. And how come there were Southerners who were pro-Union? Well, that's a different. That has nothing to do with communism, but that's the problem with these people. They all have these assertions that they make. But then when somebody asks them about specifics, they start giving these general statements like, well, the environment plays a role. Okay, explain to me, how does the environment in North Korea differ from how did the environment in North Korea get people to subscribe to communism as opposed to the Southern Koreans who rejected it? And there was a civil war between the two. How does that happen? How come they were Russians who subscribed to communism and there were Russians who were anti-communist? How come there are Palestinians who are pro-Islamist and there are Palestinians who hate religion and they're communist? How come there are Saudis who are super religious, but they are Saudis who don't give a shit about religion and they want to go sniff cocaine and drink alcohol, even though they're in the same country? I mean, we can go on and on with this. How come there were French who were anti-monarchist? There were French who were pro-monarchist, and they all lived in the same areas. All French. If the Greeks and the Romans knew about genetics, maybe, probably, I don't know. Anyway, that's my stance on that. How come they were English people who were anti-Catholic? English people that were pro-Catholic. Many English people went to the side of the Protestants. Many English people didn't. The Spartans did have some genetic beliefs. Yes, they did. Plato also had some eugenic ideology as well. Anyway. See, this is what I hate about arguing with people. Somebody makes an assertion, right? This is how all arguments occur. This is how they all transpire. Somebody makes an assertion about something. The opposing person, the opponent will begin to ask questions about certain specific situations that contradict what the person is arguing for, that contradict the assertions that are made. Then what happens is that the person who initially made the assertions, he moves back a little bit, but then he kind of he'll move back, he'll kind of agree with his opponent, but then he'll give something else as a detour. It's almost like what they call a red herring. And that's literally how all arguments are. Debating is not about seeking truth. That's most of the time when you're debating, many times, no, I'm not saying everybody who debates is not seeking truth. What I am saying is that many times when you debate people, you're debating people who have no interest in truth, or they're not really interested in the reality of what they're saying, but they're interested in proving their reality. They want to make their reality real, or they want to make their ideology true. And they're not really interested, even if they're presented with things that contradict what they're saying, they don't care. So they're going to say anything to win the argument. Like, for example, somebody says, "Oh, I believe in eugenics. So genetics does this or does that." Okay, well, how come you had Koreans who were all part of the same country? Half of the Koreans went to communism, the other half didn't. Well, what happened there? Well, there are environmental factors. Well, what does that even mean? And they start making these general statements. I did a video about this last year, how people manipulate conversations. And what I said was that when you bring up a specific with somebody, they will almost always they will bring up a generality. If you bring up a generality, they will always bring a specific. So if you start speaking in generalities, they will get pedantic. If you start getting pedantic, they start becoming general. They start making generalized statements. This is literally how every debate goes. Every single debate happens this way. It always transpires. It will always go down this road. If somebody says, "I believe in A," and you say, "Oh, well, okay, well, here's B, C, and D that contradict A." And then they'll say, "Well, some of this is true, but don't you know," enter generalized statement. You brought specifics. The specifics were B, C, and D. The person responds with generalized statements. This literally always happens. This literally always happens. It always happens. This is why I do not like debating people. I don't really enjoy debating people. The only reason why I debate people is so that I don't live in an echo chamber. I don't want this YouTube channel to always just be me talking. This is why when people disagree with me, I usually will say, "Hey, let's how about you get on here and have a conversation, an actual audible conversation with me." The reason why I do that is so that I can invite debate and discussion and opposition, because it also helps me out as a person. When somebody comes in to oppose my beliefs, even though that may seem scary, you should invite it. Not all the time, but you should invite it sometimes, occasionally, so that it sort of sharpens you, and it actually helps you so that you can be prepared to give an answer, and it helps you sharpen your knowledge, or sharpen the knowledge that you have on your particular position that you're defending. I don't want this channel to be strictly a yeah, I don't want this channel to be strictly something that is just to be strictly me talking. Um, that's what the pre-recorded videos are for. The pre-recorded videos are just me giving my thoughts on certain things. These live streams are here for you to tell me what you guys think. You need mistakes in DNA, which triggers nature to evolve into something. Oh, we're getting into evolution now. Okay. Like a true Anglican. Um, it's like arguing with a Calvinist. A Calvinist will say, "Well, God created everything." Well, did God create evil? Well, God destines everything. Well, does God destine evil to happen? Sort of. Well, God predestines everyone's salvation or everyone's damnation. Okay, so what is the point of even preaching the gospel to people if God has already predestined who's going to burn in hell and who's going to be in heaven? Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't preach. Well, then there's a contradiction in your statement. No, there's not a contradiction. I still believe in preaching. It's like they make this extreme assertion that God chooses who goes to hell without regardless of their actions, regardless if they're a decent person. It doesn't. Nothing matters. What matters is God is going to choose who burns in hell and who goes to heaven. You can be the biggest scoundrel in the world. God has chosen you to go to heaven. You're a wonderful Calvinist. And then you could say, well, don't actions matter? Well, you're not saved by your works. Okay, you're not saved by your works, but don't actions matter? Well, they kind of do matter, but it's just annoying talking to those people. God allows evil to exist, yes. I wouldn't say that God wants evil to exist, nor does he destine evil to happen. But I think that he allows people to choose evil. He believed the Europeans developed by embracing steel, while South Americans were content to remain as they were until the Europeans came. Okay, that may be true. That may be true, but who knows? Anyway, do you guys have anything else interesting to talk about? Because I've been here for almost 2 hours and a half. Actually, the natives were on the verge of a Bronze Age with the technology existed. Well, for one thing, a lot of those natives had some pretty advanced stuff. They had advanced knowledge on the constellations, on the planets. The pyramids were very advanced, and their cities, actually, believe it or not, when the Spanish came to Mexico, they said that it was the cities that they had in Mexico were unlike anything they've ever seen in Europe. They were more, in a way, they were their metropolitan zones were much more ginormous, and their buildings were bigger than what they were used to in Europe. So those there were a lot. There's no such thing as a stupid people. Jane, we're getting taller. How come like most Mexicans are like 5'3"? Oh, the death penalty stuff. Would you disagree with me on that as well? Here we go. Let's talk about the death penalty again. Depends where the Mexicans are from. Indians are smaller, Europeanish are taller. The creation is less than he is. So even though it was created good, it is less than him, and therefore. Oh, you're pro death. That's awesome. We agree on that. It is less than him, and therefore is open to the possibility of iniquity and the coming of into existence. That's a good observation. Is Trevor Green related to Head? No, they're not related. I thought the same thing. I actually spoke to Trevor Green personally one time, and no, he's not related to Heather. I do have a sister named Heather, but she is not related to me. Anyway, guys, I've been here for 2 hours. I think I'm done for today. My dad will be doing a live stream. I will be live streaming it here from YouTube. It'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be live streaming my dad from my YouTube channel, and then my dad will be doing a live stream for the Gathering Church. So it'll be interesting, an interesting event. DNA is super resilient by design. It does not readily. Okay. Do you believe in doing civilian arrest? Sure. If you see, I don't know, if some people saw a pedophile walking down the parking lot and he was preying on children and they arrested him, yeah, I would definitely support that. DNA is super resilient by design. It does not readily step outside its limited spectrum of variation. The origin of species is a joke. There would be no species at all if not for DNA rebound. I'm still waiting for that communist gene. I wonder what that is. I was on. I don't have an EAT end of my name. Yep, that's true. E at the end of my name. Yeah, English spelling is retarded. It's annoying. I'm very thankful I'm here on Earth. Feel very blessed. Well, that's nice, Jane. That's good that you feel blessed. It's good that you're content with life. If you're pro death penalty, you're cool on you're cool in my book. You're an ally of mine. Ciao, brother. Ciao, Frank Villardo. See you later, Catherine. Bye-bye, Jane, Trevor, Joshua, Juan, Heather, Sister Tenacious, EAP123. God bless y'all. Bye-bye. I think I've been here for, 2 hours and a half, so I'll see you all later. Enjoy your guys' weekend. Have a good night. 117 Rebel. Have a good night. EAP123. God bless y'all. Bye-bye.